Good morning. Welcome to EXSIN Live. Pray first, I want to start this on a more somber note and say our hearts and prayers go out to all the families in Uvalde, Texas, for what's going on. It's very challenging. We understand that, and just know that there are people all across the country praying for your healing and getting to the foundational causes of what happened and how we prevent it in the future.
Yeah, well said.
So I feel like I got to tell you a story.
Okay.
And we're starting this. And we did that thing for the chamber yesterday, and I had a very, very nice lady ask me a very, very hard question. She goes, "How do you give feedback to your boss when they don't listen?"
Without getting fired.
She didn't say without getting fired, but it was implied.
Yeah,
it was implied. So I thought today it would be a great day to talk about that because we've all worked for that one. I wanted to say guy, but I know that's not politically correct.
Person.
Hold on a second, Phil. Look at my chest.
Dave, you're not. What the daylights? You got armor on?
I guess I'm wearing a green sweater, so the
Here, zip that up. Looks like you got like you're a superhero. I mean, you are Captain America, but there you go.
Hey, and just so you guys know, we've had about 8 feet of rain in the last few days, so I'm wearing my raincoat because I don't like getting wet and I hate being cold. So
he has his little rubber hat, his galoshes.
I do.
I've been stomping around in a pair of Tony Llamas and blue jeans.
I mean, I'm prepared.
Soaking wet.
I'm ready for whatever the good Lord throws at us weather-wise.
It's the difference between a ground pounder and a pilot, right?
I like doing pre-flights there. It is no fun. So let's get back on track. Let's talk about how can you give your boss feedback when they don't listen? And I promise you, we've all worked for that person.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't listen and just tells you you're wrong. Go do what I said to do.
I've been that person.
We've always done it that way.
I've been that person.
Flags to think about things you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
If you're a boss and you've said that, you need to check yourself.
Yeah.
Just saying. Hey, Melissa, how's it going? I'm glad you're here
Melissa.
today. Good to see you. You're doing great things.
Candy girl.
Candy girl. Great
Candy lady.
Yes, man. Yes, sir. So the first thing you need to think about is understand what the objective or the goal is of the conversation. Go in with a specific objective and don't be confrontational.
Well, and I think that's hard, right? Because usually those kind of conversations, there's emotion tied to them. You know, most people, if they get to the point where they say, okay, I'm going to go talk to the boss, there's emotion behind that. And so the first thing I tell you is, try to take as much of the emotion out of the conversation as you can. I mean, you've got to keep it, data-driven, fact-driven, process-driven. And please, 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 have a solution to the problem before you go in there. It's just something that I think too many people, they'll go in and they'll say, well, this is wrong and that's wrong and this is wrong. Okay, great. What do you suggest we do to fix it? Well, I don't know. So don't do that.
So Phil has jumped right into the second one.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That's good because it's a good lead in. So prepare for the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Write down what you want to say. And here's the analogy I use that makes it really easy. Don't be a pigeon.
Yeah.
Don't fly into the boss's office and poop on his desk and leave.
Yeah.
Because he or she is not going to appreciate that. Like Phil said, walk in with a plan of what you're going to say and offer solutions to help solve the challenge you see in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, because if a conversation's coming from a place of wanting to get better, wanting the organization to improve, it's going to be better received. If you go in there and it's all about you and what's in it for you, that those are going to be less positively received. I can promise you. I don't care how patient of a boss you have, they're not going to be received. And remember, the outcome's not to be right. That shouldn't be your solution. You shouldn't go in there saying, I'm going to show them that I'm right. Your objective should be, let's go in and try to make things right. Let's go try to come up with a real solution that's going to fix the problem for the organization as a whole, not just you as an individual.
The next one is to ease into the feedback. And Stephanie Voza, who wrote the article we're taking this from, is a really good offer article. It says this: first, ask permission to provide your thoughts, says Laughlin. For example, you can start by asking, I know you have a lot on your plate. I've noticed this issue. Can I give you a couple of thoughts on that? And if you ease into it going, hey, I've seen this going on. I know you've got a lot on your plate. It really disarms your boss because you're not pointing at him and going, you suck.
Yeah, I mean, Dave and I have had these kind of conversations as business partners where, because we can read, and both of us have terrible body language. We both have,
Yeah,
we do. We have horrible body language, especially with each other. We're not good at it. And so there's not a lot of guesswork on where somebody is mentally, typically, when we're getting ready to have some conversation that maybe is, we'll say, uncomfortable. But you have to have them. Now, where we're lucky is that neither one of us are wallflowers. Neither one of us, you're not going to say anything to me that I'm going to carry for a long time and hold it over you. And Dave's the same way. Now it may get loud between the two of us, but that's not the right way. So we understand emotion in a situation. It's about asking, have you ever heard this saying? I've said this to people before. I had this conversation with Dave a couple months ago. I said, listen, I called him. I wanted to get some things back on track for me personally, professionally, that I wasn't doing as well as I thought I should. And we all know when we're doing those things, whether you acknowledge them or not, we all know. So I called Dave up and I said, hey, brother, I said, I'm giving you permission to hold me accountable. Did I not?
You did.
And I said, and I apologize that I'm even having to ask you to do this, but I need you to hold me accountable. Him being first and foremost a good friend, said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Now, there's that old saying, be careful what you ask for, because you'll get it. And I got it like 3 days later out of him when I had that conversation, and he was right. But it was good, though, right? So if you go in with a attitude of, hey, listen, can I speak to you, openly? Can we have a frank conversation? And you take the emotion out of it, you're going to get a better outcome than if you go in there and say, listen, Nichols, you're an idiot. This policy's an idiot. This isn't working. I can't believe you can't see this. How the hell is this company still running with you at the helm? Well, I can promise you're not going to get it's not going to be a good conversation. But you can go in, because Dave does it all the time, and say, hey, Phil, you're an idiot, without saying that I'm an idiot. He does it all the time with me, right? It's how you approach somebody. So understand who you're talking to, okay? Because whether you like it or not, the person you're talking to in this scenario is still the boss. Okay? So again, focus on the outcome you want and not the emotion of the situation, and approach it in a way that you would talk to. Picture the person that you love the most in the world. For most people, that's a child or a spouse or a parent or something along those lines, right? If I've got to have a tough conversation with my bride, who I love more than anything in the world, have for 34 years, then I'm not going to approach her the way that I approach most people. So if you approach everybody the way you would approach that person that you really care the most about, you're going to have great conversations.
So, how many of you guys watch Friends?
Oh, yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do this. That's the whole point of this. Look, getting emotionally situations, you are now on the defensive. You've now put yourself in a position to where you are not going to be successful if you're the subordinate in the situation, if you're the employee or the team member. And those things will affect you long term, because
big time. Because
word travels fast. But if you walk in there unemotionally and try to peacefully and respectfully and to the point directly address the challenge with a solution, your supervisor is going to appreciate it more than you ever know. And if they don't, then you'll understand what kind of feedback you can't give them anymore. Because there are some supervisors that are not easy to or able to communicate with, to be told they're messing up. They don't like it. They're not good supervisors. Let's be frank. They're terrible supervisors.
And they're horrible leaders.
And they're horrible leaders. That's a fact.
And I think you got to be careful, because there are those people out there that, I will just say it, are very narcissistic. They think that they're the only ones that have good answers. I dealt with a person like this not too long ago at another business that I used to have ownership in. I sold my ownership because of this person, because I just didn't want to deal with it, right? Dave knows exactly what I'm talking about right now. But
Yep.
but it was these people typically have their little pack. They usually have their 4 or 5 or 6 people.
They're cult.
That get away with everything.
They're cult.
They have different rules.
Yep.
They're treated differently. It's just horrible leadership from top to bottom. If you happen to be in a scenario with that, those are tough ones. But what I have found is if you go in and you make it about them to where it's their idea, where you're giving them the solution, but you do it in such a way to where, because of their ego or their narcissistic personality, they just will not listen to logic. because they cannot be not the smartest person in the room, then you've got to do a way around it. With this scenario in my personal life, I just didn't care to do that because I just had no respect for the person. And so the easiest thing for me, for the whole organization, was I just sold my shares in the company and moved down the road because it wasn't worth it to me. Now, if you're an employee, right? If you're an employee, many times you don't have that luxury. I mean, you've got to absolutely figure this out, and that's when you've got to be really strategic and really tactical about how you approach that person. So you got to start with the right mindset. My mindset with that example was, I don't care. I mean, I didn't care. I just don't care. I'll take my ball and go home, because I didn't have to be there, right? Most people don't have that luxury. So you've got to.
Can anybody see Phil just taking his ball and leaving? I don't see him quietly doing that.
Well, I was pretty loud on the way out, but but I did take my ball and leave.
No, I know.
But I think there's just. And realistically, and I think being genuine, this is part of the scenario too. If you try those things and there's still no solution, then to be quite frank, a lot of times that's a good indication that maybe this organization's culture isn't right and you're going to have to make a move. We've heard this saying a million times, people don't quit jobs, they quit bad leaders.
And that's happening right now more than ever.
Everywhere.
Because people can't. You're in a state as a business owner that the economy is such that they're looking for good people. If you have good people that aren't being taken care of, they're going to go find something else, and they should.
Yeah.
They honestly should. If they're not happy, there's no reason to be unhappy in life and your job.
Those kind of organizations always self-implode. It may not happen today. It may not happen in a year. It may not happen in 5 years. But ultimately, I promise you, 100% of those kind of organizations never make it long term. Never make it. I mean, it just doesn't work.
So we talked about emotion, removing the emotion. This next thing, and I really like this point. It's really important. It's create a two-way street, right? You gave your boss your feedback. Ask for theirs. Look, I see this happen in an organization. What do you have for me? What do you suggest that I can do to help the team get better? Because that now you're really discerning because you're not only offering a solution to a problem, but you're also saying, hey, are you seeing things that I could work on that I may be missing? Now they feel engaged, and it's a two-way street, and they want to engage the conversation, and they respect you for offering yourself up to be criticized.
Well, and I think this goes back to what we talk about all the time is culture, and I know that's not sexy. I know that everybody thinks, everybody says that. Well, the reason why everybody says that is because it's true. I mean, the culture is the most important thing. If you have a healthy culture, then and you approach them in the correct way, there'll be a positive outcome. I mean, there will be. But don't live in a fairy tale world where you think you're going to do everything right and everybody's going to hear you and accept that and make changes. That's why I say the realization might be that you need to go take your ball and go somewhere else. Now, that's unfortunate, and I'm not saying do that immediately. You got to give people time. You got to try to, sometimes it takes time to get change made. But you've got to be willing to have those kind of professional conversations in a way to where people hear you and receive the information.
Teams, strong organizations have that culture built in.
They
have a two-way feedback system. Everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Everybody understands each other. They have great communication skills. They know what the standards of excellence are. And part of this is, are we living up to standards of excellence? Has the leader set those standards? Do we know where we're headed? Right? So if you're in an organization now that's struggling with that, I would ask you this. Do you know what the vision of your organization is? Do you know what the objective is? Do you know what the mission is? Do you know what your role is in those things? If you don't know those four things, find those out first.
Yeah.
Find those out first. And then try to understand the perspective of leadership in your organization before you go in to offer feedback. Because you may be missing something.
Yeah.
Now, you probably aren't, but you may be. And by doing that and understanding those things, you can have an intelligent conversation with your leadership about what you see going on.
Which goes back to what Dave said at the very beginning. Be prepared to have the conversation. Anytime I sit down long enough to really walk through it mentally and logically and take emotion out of it, I always have good conversations. When I go in with emotion, not one time in my life have I ever had a good conversation. And sometimes that's, quit laughing, sometimes that's by choice. Dave knows that I do practice psyops. I do like that.
I need to pick up my script.
Yeah, I do like that. So there's people do, a lot of times when we've talked about this in leadership, And leadership, again, isn't a title, guys. Titles have nothing to do with who's a leader. We work with organizations that the most influential leader is the person that runs the warehouse. They have more of an impact on the organization than anybody else because people respect them and listen to them. You know, so it has nothing to do with title. So first of all, don't tell yourself that lie. Okay? Title has nothing to do with this. But you've got to be prepared. You've got to go in with no emotion, and you've got to have possible solutions to what you see as the challenge that you're talking to them about.
There is leadership at all levels, and I would suggest that if you're on the lower side of the totem pole, lead up.
Yeah.
And giving feedback to your supervisor in a polite, professional way is leading up.
100%.
Helping your teammates get better is leading up. There are so many informal leaders in any organization. Most of us know who those are if we've been in that situation. And those are the people, like Phil said, that drive success for the organization. I can promise you the guy sitting in his big executive chair with his big executive desk would not be where he or she is today if it wasn't for the people in the organization, knowing their role, how they impact, and the greatness they bring to the organization.
You know, I guess, Dave, the sad thing is that, and we see this all the time, but unfortunately, I do believe this. Culture starts at the top. I mean, you've got to have somebody that casts a vision and understands what they want. You know, and I'm not saying these are bad people. That, you know, you can have great human beings that don't have a healthy culture at work. And it's not because they want that. They don't want that. It's because they're so caught up in just trying to keep the ship sailing that they lose sight of the culture and how important that is. You know, we deal with CEOs, and you've heard me say this. Who does a CEO talk to about their problems? The answer is nobody.
It's a fact.
And so if there's a way that you can become that sounding board, that boss respects and values, and they know you're thoughtful, and that your end game is what's best for the organization, then you've got a great chance of creating and having a huge impact on the culture within your organization. I think if I had to pick two things that are the most important things, it's be prepared and take emotion out of it. I mean, you've got to be prepared, and you can't go in there with emotion.
That's a fact. So you have a process to give feedback to your boss. I appreciate the question today, and thank you for the Edmond Chamber for allowing us to spend time with you yesterday, and all of the great community businesses that were there. It was certainly a pleasure. For Dave and Phil, this is EXSIN Live, and we are out of here.